When we were first introduced to Rob Lucci 2 years ago in Water 7, he was one of the coolest characters we were introduced to at that point. I mean, he had a cool suit, he had a pigeon on his shoulder, he had the full package, and he beat both Luffy and Zoro in the same arc. He motivated them. He also had arguably one of the best fights in One Piece, period. Now fast forward 2 years to Egghead, and we see Lucci and all of CP9 have been promoted to CP0, and they wear these cool masks to signify that they're stronger now, even among CP0, even though the masks don't conceal their identities too much, because you can still see Rob Lucci's weird goatee and Kaku's longest nose poking up from the mask. Like, who else is a pigeon on the shoulder who also wears a suit? So, like, these masks are not effective at all. So, anyway, so Lucci, Kaku, and Stussy pull up on the island to assassinate Vegapunk, and they run into Atlas, who's one of Vegapunk's satellites. And Lucci just hits her with a Six King pistol and blows up her face, which is insane. But like shortly after this, Luffy comes into the scene and he sees Atlas laying on the ground and he thinks he's dead. And of course Luffy gets angry at this because Atlas had fed him and Chopper and Bonnie earlier in the arc. So of course Luffy's gonna fight for people who feed him. That's just the type of guy he is. And this leads into one of the best fights within Egghead between Luffy and Lucci. But if we're being honest, this wasn't much of a fight. It was just Luffy showing off his Gear 5 to Lucci. So Luffy and Lucci had their rematch, and this fight was pretty awesome, especially in the anime. They cooked with that one, I'm not gonna lie. At least they did better than what was in the manga, because in the manga they made Luffy look like a god compared to Lucci, which is true, but still. But anyway, so we see Luffy and Lucci both transformed, and we see that Lucci has also awakened his devil fruit, and it looks super cool, especially with Shaka speaking in the background, giving him more aura. But he had no chance at beating Luffy. Like most of the fight, Luffy felt like he was just testing out Gear 5, because he was just legitimately toying with Lucci. The fight was still pretty awesome, but Lucci had no shot at winning, and he pretty much realized that within the fight, and he went for Sentomaru instead to get the pacifista on his side, or the Seraphim, and he went and struck Sentomaru with a handgun. Not a handgun, a hand pistol, which is like an upgraded version of the finger pistol from Water 7 that the CP agents love using so much. But Luffy spun back for Sentomaru, and he sent Lucci flying into a wall, and the fight continued after that. So fast forward to after the fight, when the Navy finds out Luffy's on the island, and tells Lucci to not fight with the Straw Hats, cause he's an emperor now, and they need permission and backup to deal with them. But as we find out that Lucci is as stubborn as a brick, and refuses to view the Straw Hats as an emperor crew, which is hilarious because he already lost to Luffy, like pre-time skip and just a minute ago. So this is just pure ego talking in the case of Rob Lucci. The guy is very prideful, and I think losing to Luffy like 2 times hurt his ego. Okay, so due to some York shenanigans, the Frontier Dome gets deactivated, and the CP0 agents grapple themselves into the labo phase of Egghead in order to assassinate Vegapunk. And they spot the Sunny, and they think it's unguarded, but little do they know that the goat was taking a nap in there, and you never want to wake Zoro from his nap. So Kaku uses his Tempest Kick in order to slice the Sunny in half, but Zoro stops it, and they start fighting. And I say fighting with the loosest of terms possible, because this wasn't much of a fight. This was essentially just an extended clash between Zoro and Kaku. which was essentially just nostalgia bait, if we're being honest, from back in Annie's lobby. But it was also cut short because of Stacy interfering with the fight and knocking out both Lucci and Kaku using her, I want to say vampire fruit, but we're not sure if it's a vampire or a bat. But she has bat wings on her back. But it doesn't matter which fruit she has, she still knocks them both out. So we fast forward a little bit to when Lucci and Kaku are lying on the floor, while Luffy and Zoro are fighting S-Bear and S-Hawk. At this point, they are a liability to both Luffy and Zoro because they keep having to save them from both the Seraphim's attack. And this is when Lucci and Kaku both agree to form an alliance with the Straw Hats. It is a temporary alliance in order to fight themselves out of this predicament. And at this point, Lucci and Kaku are more like liabilities to Luffy and Zoro because they keep having to save them every time the Seraphim attack. So they agree to form a temporary alliance with the Straw Hats in order to fight back, which led to this funny reaction from Luffy and Zoro. Understandably, Luffy and Zoro don't agree to this team up, and Shaka then decides to ask what Lucci's mission was here on Egghead. And Lucci answers this very bluntly, and he says that his mission was simply to eliminate Vegapunk and his satellites. Like, he could have easily lied and said something else, but our leopard boy is surprisingly very honest, which, now that I'm thinking about it, it makes sense that Hattori was the one speaking for him in Water 7, because that doesn't sound like a good personality trait for a spy assassin to have, especially when you're infiltrating some place for like 5 years and you can't even lie. But anyway, so Luffy eventually agrees to free them and form the temporary alliance, but not before letting him know that the moment Lucci tries anything funny, he will put him down on some emperor shit. And Lucci easily takes the bait and swears to take down Luffy first before the rest of his crew, which is hilarious because he already lost to Luffy like 2 times already, and the second time he got noticed. And so the fight with the Seraphim goes on for a few chapters, and this fight is pretty good, especially in the anime. And so we're gonna fast forward a few chapters to when the Seraphim are handled and the Navy has arrived along with the Saint Saturn. So now the Straw Hats and the Vegapunks are all chatting and planning, while Lucci and Kaku are unchained, which is pretty risky if we're being honest, but who cares, right? And so Lucci hears that Kizaru has landed and decides to take the opportunity to eliminate Vegapunk, but Stussy blocks him, and then Zoro steps in, and like Lucci had a confidence boost hearing Kizaru was on the island, and he's talking like, between me and Kizaru, you guys are dead. Like, bro, we know you only made your move since Luffy isn't there. So Lucci and Zoro start fighting, and Zoro starts taunting him, and Lucci finally, like, second-handedly admits that Luffy is an emperor, and they continue fighting, which again is better in the anime, or at least is shown and focused on more in the anime than it is in the manga. So we skip around to when everyone is reacting to when Saint Saturn is arriving on Egghead, which is peak both in the manga and in the anime. And a lot of stuff happens while these two are still fighting. And at this point, they aren't even fighting, they're just trash talking each other. Like, bro, these niggas can't be serious, man. But eventually, after some taunting from Sanji, Zoro locks in and hits Lucci with the hoorah spot hunt, giving Lucci some crazy cuts. But Lucci refuses to go down, and he gets hit by Jinbei's 5000 break chop, reverting him to base form. But he's still tanky though, he's still tanky. And so after Jinbei scoops up Zoro, Saint Marcus Mars arrives in his full transformed Itsumate form, and the face on Lucci is like, bro, He looks pretty shook right now, but he manages to lock in and gives Marcus the report on the situation on Egghead right now. And he asks Marcus to spare Kaku's life, which is pretty rare for Lucci because we've never seen him care for anyone else apart from his pigeon, which is pretty sweet actually, seeing that Lucci considers Kaku his friend, or at least some type of friend, but still, it's pretty sweet coming from a serial killer. Yeah, that's Rob Lucci on Egghead. Now, I admit he really didn't do much here, but it was still cool seeing him back after all these years, along with Hattori and Kaku. But all they did was be used as hide tools for Zoro and Luffy, which isn't like particularly bad, but I wish they did something. Like I wish they added stakes into the arc. But other than that, it was still cool. A little bit of nostalgia sprinkled in there, but yeah,